Welcome back into this month's episode of the ICLA podcast, License to Lead, Business Behind the Brand. I'm your host, Jason Harbison, coming to you from the campus of Auburn University. ICLA's goals are to provide unbiased, industry-leading resources focused on improving the overall understanding of the collegiate licensing industry, further development of licensing professionals, and to increase the collaboration of licensing professionals across our industry. Today's guest can serve as a tremendous resource to help accomplish all three of those major goals. Today, we are continuing our conversations with the newest ICLA inductees into the ICLA Hall of Fame. I'm excited to have Tammy Purves with me as today's guest. Tammy has served as a licensing director, as a president of our organization, and is now vice president of communications at Learfield, spending a lot of her time working with a collegiate licensing company. Tammy is joining me today on the Sewing Concepts Hot Market Hotline. Welcome in, Tammy. First, thanks for joining me.
Well, thank you, Jason, for having me in ICLA. It was such a tremendous honor to be inducted into the Hall of Fame and going in with such great friends as well, in Marty and Craig. So I really appreciate this time to be able to spend with you as well.
Absolutely. It was well-deserved, a 30-year career that deserved recognition. So I know all of ICLA was very excited to see you receive that recognition and be a part of it. I know it was fun to be a part of, be there with your family. So first, let's just get to know you for our listeners and viewers that might not have had the pleasure of getting to know you as well. So we'll start on the professional side. So I understand, like many licensing folks, you probably didn't go to college and go, I want to be a licensing professional, kind of came into it a different direction. So I understand your introduction to our space first came through a role in a connection with the 96 Atlanta Olympics. So let's start there.
Sure, that's right. I actually, you're correct in the assessment that I didn't go to school for that. I actually started, have a degree from Georgia Tech and started there as a nuclear engineer, if you can believe it or not. Ended up with a business degree and then somehow got into sports public relations and higher ed. But originally was hired by Georgia Tech to help with the PR and build our PR platform for the 1996 Olympic Games. Atlanta had just been awarded the Games in early 90, and we were, as a campus, going to be the site of the Olympic Village, as well as two venues for swimming and boxing. And really, there was just a need to have somebody kind of be a tour guide to welcome people to campus, talk to them about what we were going to do. So for a couple of years anyway, I kind of served as a Vanna White for all of our Olympic bid and what it was going to look like, and gave me a great opportunity to just really build my PR skills from scratch and get to know a lot of people on the international circuit as friendship forces and sports leagues and all that would come in to see what the Olympic Village was going to look like for the 96 Games. So
obviously collegiate licensing is not new in 96, but it was not what it is today and how we know it today. So what did you see on the Olympic side of licensing? They'd been at it a long time. What did you see from there, protecting the rings and all that you were able to translate over to the collegiate side?
Sure. Well, if the Olympics are very strict with their branding. There is very little wiggle room, but also they're very strict when it comes to their corporate partners, other people that get access to it. So you would think that as the Olympic Village in the venues that Georgia Tech would have ready access to all of those marks as well. And that was really not the case. So we had to work hard to even be able to leverage some marks to sell merchandise, to really get our alumni and our fan base and our students all wanted to be a part of something that honestly they weren't going to have access to just because of the security of the Olympic Village and things. So, we had to find ways to collaborate, ways to let them know that we weren't going to be, doing any harm to their marks and work in that limited capacity. But definitely learned a lot about just the collaboration side with brands outside the college space. Also, the need to enforce your logos and your marks, because as we've all known in this business, for a while, a part of owning your mark is the protection and the ability to say that you are trying to restrict the use to people who can officially get licensed or be approved, or you run that risk of losing the mark.
So you were involved in the Olympics. You kind of got back at your alma mater. Everybody loves to do that. I'm here at mine. So then the Olympics moved on, and you translated into licensing there at Georgia Tech. Talk a little bit about how that went. You went from the, as you said, tour guide for some Olympic folks to full-time licensing there at Georgia Tech.
Sure. So in 1994, I actually took on a licensing role. Before that, it really, like a lot of campuses at that point, was just sort of done as an aside. We had an administrative assistant who was fantastic, but for the vice president, and she was really processing designs and not spending any time being strategic. So we decided we really needed to have a little bit more of a strategic focus on licensing. So in 1994, I took on that role while we were also working on Olympics. By that time, we were expanding Olympic PR to really our entire communications team, which is where I was housed in the university communications department. And so, that it was just one of the things that I loved. I've grown up a sports fan. It was sort of my connection to the sports side while still being on the academic side of the house. So really enjoyed developing a lot of our program from scratch and working with, at the time, our agents were CLC and Crossland on the international side as well. And so just really trying to build that from scratch and getting a little more strategic in our approach.
Well, congratulations as a Georgia Tech sports fan for a big win last Saturday. That was fun to watch. I know you guys had fun with that. But so Georgia Tech is a brand there in Atlanta. There's a lot going on in Atlanta. You've got a lot of pro teams, just a lot going on. So what were some of the challenges of managing the licensing program at Georgia Tech?
Sure. And I think those challenges probably still exist for Amy and others today in other schools who are in major markets where you're competing for the entertainment dollar and sports dollar and space, is really just trying to find, our approach, our niche, where we could get to our fans. And frankly, that's one of the biggest evolutions I've sort of enjoyed watching over my career is just that, at that point back in the mid 90s, early 2000s, a lot of it focused on bookstores even back then and to some degree, department stores and sporting goods stores. But, back when I started in licensing, one of the top retailers of licensed product was JCPenney. I mean, it's crazy to think of that. They had a completely dedicated catalog to their sports licensing merchandise because they carried so much of it. And so, think about where we are now. I mean, there's hardly a JCPenney that exists in a lot of malls and things these days. So that evolution and how, it really is more about finding the consumer and the fan where they are, and the importance of, everybody still wants to go to the bookstore when they're on campus, and you obviously want to find product in some of your local retailers. But the reality is your fans are all over the country, and so
absolutely
the strategy needed for social selling and digital, the online presence is probably more important a lot of times than brick and mortar. So has been kind of interesting to see that evolution. And that's the great thing about being in a city like Atlanta is you've got this very diverse population. And so you can reach them through these digital outlets because they may not be coming to your campus.
Yeah, for sure. I love you mentioned the JCPenney, the collegiate catalog, because, as I was growing up, it was the Sears catalog at first, right. And then that kind of went away. And then JCPenney kind of jumped in there. So I would go circle the toys I needed, that time of year. So hadn't thought about the JCPenney catalog in a while. So
that just tells you how old I am. Yes.
No, exactly. That's awesome. That is a blast from the past that I needed today. So from there, you transitioned over, not to your current exact spot now, but you went from a university to CLC, the CLC licensing agency side of the business.
Right.
So just talk about, I guess, first of all, how that went down, and then what your initial responsibilities were at CLC.
Well, I think, one of the ways that it was as easier maybe for me to transition to this side of it is I was able to bring my school perspective to the rest of the team. And over the years, we've had a number of folks that have come into the CLC work team family that have been at schools or have been at licensees or on it, and it helps to bring that perspective to the table. So when we would talk about how we wanted to launch something or what we might be thinking of, I could put on my licensing director cap or put on my cap of the understanding of campus politics, because we all know that doesn't exist anywhere in America. But to be able to say, well, that's not really how that's going to go down, or this is how a purchasing department really works on the backside. And so, the sexy part of college. So that was very helpful in terms of easing that transition and feeling like I could be a resource to the team there when I started at CLC.
So walk us a little bit now. I know you're involved in a lot of things. I think mostly CLC, but some on the other parts of Learfield as well. So just walk us through a day in the life of Tammy at CLC Learfield these days.
Sure. Yes, I do. I'm predominantly focused on CLC and supporting all of our comms and our partners and our licensees, but do also serve on the greater communications team across all of Learfield. So I get to touch those areas as well. I feel super blessed in that in my role, it happens to be one that really gets to work with all of the different divisions at CLC, and whether it's helping with communications related to video games, or it's building media relations so that we can pitch new product launches like the Stetson launch that we just recently had, or working with royalty operations or our licensing team to help them message out new policies or other things that we need to communicate. One of my favorite projects is planning our CLC seminar, which is our annual client meeting. And while it's absolutely a tremendous team effort and everybody pitches in and gets involved, I get the pleasure of sort of leading that effort, which to me is like a family reunion, because I've been in the industry a while, and there's a lot of licensing directors and licensees and all that have become family as much as anything. So I love working on that, and we are now, because the next for 2026 in Kansas City, that'll be here before you know it. So we're working on a little bit of that every day too.
That is always a fun time. You're right. Very much a family reunion. A lot of the ICLA events also a bit of a family reunion. So an expanded version of the licensing world. So you've been with ICLA a long time as well. Yes. On the organization side, you weren't only a former president, but you were really instrumental in founding NCLA that later transitioned into ICLA. So just give us a little bit of the thought process behind that. Obviously, you looked at the industry and went, we need some collaboration here. We need an organization that we can unite behind. But what did that look like when that was being started?
Yeah, and you really hit the nail on the head there, Jason, in terms of, there was a licensing association in existence, ACLA, at the time, and it was definitely serving a purpose. And there were a lot of us that were members of that and involved with that. But we had an opportunity through just some discussions with NACTA to get into a situation with NCLA at the time and starting that organization, where we really felt like we needed a better nexus with the athletic world, because in the overused term sometimes that athletics is the front porch of a university, it really does serve in that capacity to a lot of people as you're introducing them to your brand. That's or you're connecting your community, whether that's your students, your alumni, the general population around your campus. And so there were a group of us that felt like we were kind of missing that we wanted to join and start something within NACTA where we could have a physical synergy if we were meeting together, and we could co-host sessions and collaborate on that. So that's where the idea for NCLA came from. And then, it's just like today, there are challenges with, it's hard to fund 2 trips to different places. And so, we were getting a little bit split as to especially for people who were members of both, to have people having to choose. And so we had groups that from we came together and decided we were going to merge back, and we were going to stay under NACTA so that we could keep that synergy going with, with the marketing people, with all of the athletic folks that might overlap. And we merged ACLA and NCLA to become ICLA. And so brought a group together, Judy Menard from Oklahoma State, and Lee from East Carolina, and Linda Gilbert. And then on the ACLA side, Connie Palfy and Rob Cleveland, a number of us, and we got together and kind of mapped out our bylaws and all the things you got to have for an organization, and really came back together to what we know now as ICLA.
I'm sure it was fun then to see something being built from the ground up, and now, all these years later, 25 plus years later, to look back and go, wow, there's an organization that has over 800 members each year and has, great turnout at their events and everything. So I'm sure you're proud as you look back on what's been accomplished.
Oh, absolutely. It's great to think of that, although, we're coming up on the 25th anniversary, and yet there's still a lot for us to do. I think that, we've always we created the organization because we really wanted to elevate the role of licensing and the licensing director on college campuses and through athletics and other things. And, I think that's still something that we champion today as an organization, as from where I sit at CLC and in sponsoring and trying to do that. So, and there's obviously a lot of licensing directors out there at schools that aren't members yet. So we've also got to go figure out, how to bring them into the fold, because they need the resources too. So we're at a quarter of a century, but we've got a lot of good things that we can still do ahead.
Yes, last year's President Clarence often reminded us of how many institutions of higher ed are out there that are not members. So there's certainly plenty of room to grow. You mentioned the sponsorship. You're the primary contact for ICLA on the CLC side, both as a member and as a sponsor. So certainly on behalf of ICLA, thank you for your sponsorship. But what are as CLC looks at, we want to sponsor ICLA, what are kind of the thought processes that go into, let's go in and let's be a big part of ICLA from the CLC side?
Sure. Well, I think, fundamentally, it's probably not a secret that I have a passion for the organization, as you can tell, and being a part of it for so long. And so I can share that with all of my colleagues here, but I think our biggest thing is just what I said. We need to elevate licensing, because even today, there's still people on college campuses that think that a licensing director is just the person who approves the T-shirt. Yes. And it's really so much more than that. It has become a brand management, brand marketing role. And, we've got to keep educating others on campus for that, because licensing directors can't be successful in a vacuum. So how do we get others involved? How do we continue to sort of carry that water out on campuses and let folks know that, there is a lot more to that licensing side. And so from the CLC perspective, we 100% believe that, support that. We think we can collectively as an agency and a school partner come up with great ideas. But if the rest of the university doesn't buy into that or support it, then it's hard for either of us to execute those. So
sure. Yeah. You mentioned the T-shirt. I'm often referred to as the T-shirt police, and I'm just like, stop, please stop. Yeah. And as I look at my email over here, I don't know that I got a single one today about T-shirts. There's lots of emails and none of them about approving a T-shirt. So
that's good. You're
right. There's a lot more to it than that.
Yes.
So we have Tammy Purves joining us today on the Sewing Concepts Hot Market Hotline. Tammy, this would not be a licensing podcast in 2025 without bringing up the topic of NIL. But specific to you, I'd like to go a different direction with that and actually transition into a little info about your family on the NIL topic. You've actually given someone their name, image, and likeness, which gives you a unique spin and thought on the NIL process. So talk about your son, Ryan, and give us an update on the rest of the family.
Sure. Yes. I have a son who is a student athlete at Georgia Tech. So he did not go far in terms of where he decided to play and earn a degree. So, of course, proud mom, of course, being my alma mater. My husband went to Virginia, so we did keep it in the ACC. But, At least he went to my school, so
Exactly.
I
Close
can
by
claim
for
that. Close
Saturdays
by, so we
too.
can
Yeah.
see games and things. And not gonna lie, the first time that he ran out behind the Ramblin' Wreck out of the tunnel, it was pretty, emotional for for someone who
Yeah.
grew up around there and worked there and everything else. But he has also a little bit grown up in this industry, especially during those COVID years when we were all home. And I think he probably knew as much about what was coming from video games as I did, because he could hear calls. It was something he liked. I don't know if he considers it a plus or a minus that Mom has put down the law that he cannot sign an NIL deal that I do not review because
Everybody needs an agent
there.
as good as you, though.
But it is fun when our friends at Athletes Thread show me the new artwork or whatever. Send me Amy at Tech when she just approved of a new Ryan Purves T-shirt. He's definitely not getting rich off of NIL as a lineman, but it's been a lot of fun. And for things like the video game, he would have done that for free because he grew up playing it. And so the coolest thing for him is just that he had an avatar in the game, and so that's fun as a mom to see that.
Yeah, for sure. What about the rest of the family? You've got a senior in high school too, right?
I do. I have a daughter. She's our youngest. Just have the two, Ryan and Reese. She's a senior in high school. We're getting ready to crank up on basketball season here. She's doing her preseason workouts, and then she's looking at colleges and taking SATs and all of that. Her front runner right now is South Carolina. So anybody listening to the podcast that's got pull at the South Carolina admissions office, that would be great. But getting ready to crank up some college visits and things so she can kind of see where she might like to end up. And my husband Paul, who I mentioned, is a Virginia guy, so we've got our in-house rivalry in a lot of sports. But he's a consultant we've been going on 25 years of marriage, although we do joke that once Reese moves out of the house, we've got to start talking to each other again.
But I think a lot of people have that problem.
Yeah.
Right there. Not a problem, a new acquaintance situation, I guess. A little more time.
But we are a full sports family running around to everybody's games here and there and staying busy. But we wouldn't have it any other way.
Well, so back to the Georgia Tech thing a little bit. This is a question I get all the time, so we talked about it earlier. I want to throw it to you. What's the strangest product request you've ever received? It could be at Georgia Tech, or maybe it's something you saw at CLC walking through the licensing department back there that you said, what is that? What are we doing here?
We've seen a lot of strange things. And obviously college, we always say it's a cradle to grave industry. At Georgia Tech, we were a finished sample school. So I always said those were the things, like I didn't want to see the urn and I didn't want to see the casket. Like, just, you can keep those. I don't need to see any of those. One of the strangest products I've seen come through from a CLC perspective to Brian Hummel, the LSU coconut that got licensed, was an interesting product. But from myself, I know, and it came back to me as a gift when I left Georgia Tech, but we had something called Team Candy Head that was one of those plastic masks that is like the doll mask that you get that's also in the creepy movies. And it was glued to a styrofoam ball and then had gold hard candy as the hair. For those people who are old like me that remember the Mrs. Beasley doll from the TV show, kind of looked like that, but then it was on a mason jar full of the same hard candy that was on the head. And so, we kept it because it was so ugly that we felt like we needed to just see it from time to time. And then, of course, the candy started all melting together. But Team Candy Head did not get approved as a product. But they were nice enough to give it to me when I left.
That was really nice. Yeah, every licensing office has got to have a little bit of show and tell.
Yeah. What's one of yours?
What is that?
What's one of yours?
Let's see. Well, you mentioned the urn. So back during the COVID times, the finished samples were all coming to my house. So we had a new urn company, and so for several months, I had an urn in our dining room. And so at one point, my wife went, "That's got to go. I mean, I know it's empty. I know it's sealed, but that's got to go. So that was
You didn't
probably
want to like make a lamp out of it or anything like that.
No. She really just kind of felt like it was time for it to find a way back to the office, or I don't know. To be honest with you, I don't know what happened to it. It's weird. We do approve several of those a year, so it's quite interesting. What about on the favorite side? If you had that favorite thing that you were like, all right, when that shows up at retail, I got to run out and get one, and I'm going to use it and keep it.
I mean, I've had a lot of those over the years. I mean, they're just some of the fashion pieces that come out. I've had to stop buying some of that from a tech fan perspective because I've got stuff in my closet that I never wear as it is. My husband doesn't need me bringing home any more clothes. I think one of the things that I went out and I did buy was when we had the collegiate Barbies. I grew up as a Barbie collector. Unfortunately, don't have those anymore because they just got ruined in a family move. But I did make sure that I bought one so that I could keep it in the box and all pristine and everything with that. But there's been a lot. There's so many great college products out there right now.
Oh yeah. We have a couple of the different Barbies outside here on our shelf. So next time you're in town, you can see ours. The box is not pristine, but they're still in the box. So
I'm gonna have to check that out.
As I look across the room right now, I see one I kept that it didn't get approved. It's Albie, the Auburn mascot, affixed to the top of a toilet paper holder, which we roll trees here, so that's appropriate.
Yeah.
But then it's got a little magazine hook underneath, so it's perfect for your guest bathroom or whatever. Didn't get approved, but I mean I like it, so it's here.
You got to keep those. Yeah.
Gotta keep them. It looks pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Okay, so a couple of wild cards. You first of all, you worked at Georgia Tech, so across the street from the varsity all those years, and not too far away now. So when you walk in the varsity and they give you the old, what do you have? What do you have?
I have 2 dogs with onions and fries. So for anybody who hasn't been in the varsity, just 2 dogs is actually chili dog. And so because if it's a plain hot dog, it's called a naked dog. So if you get 2 dogs, it's with chili and add onions and then fries. So that's the standard order. It's the varsity is fantastic, but you can't eat there very often.
No, it's a special trip. And for those that haven't been, definitely a bucket list. Definitely make sure to go. Definitely
encourage everybody to go to the varsity when you're in Atlanta.
For sure. So one more kind of wild card on the we love food. Everybody loves food. So you're on a road trip. You're heading to the next seminar. You're probably going to fly to that one, but say you're driving. You got to stop for a road trip snack. What's your go-to there? So
even if I'm flying, I buy a bag of Cheez-Its because they can be breakfast, lunch, dinner, or a snack.
No doubt.
They can, every type of
and
meal
they're the cheesiest. We've seen,
and they are the cheesiest. Yes, so especially if you can get those. I also like the ones that are extra toasted. If you've ever had those, those are actually good too. And usually a bottle of water. But I am a coffee addict. So there's a lot of times if I'm pulling into a rest station or getting up for a trip, I've got to have my coffee, typically Starbucks, but otherwise just have some sort of coffee and drink it all day.
Absolutely. Well, that's that is awesome. I'm sure you will be receiving Cheez-Its from all around the country at this point. So make sure everyone has your mailing address. So, well, Tammy, thanks so much for joining us today. It's really been great. I know everybody will enjoy hearing from you. Any last words you'd like to share with the ICLA community?
Well, thank you for having me on here. First of all, Jason, this has been great. And, really just one for everybody that's out there, whether it's, a CLC need or a licensing need, I'm always available to talk or to talk Cheez-Its, whatever anybody would like to talk about, or happy to help. But, I think there's so many great opportunities still ahead for the collegiate licensing industry. And so I just encourage all of us to lean in to those, because I do think, there's tremendous pressure right now on college campuses for revenue, and especially in the athletic areas. And, we just have to keep counting on each other, leaning in together so that we can continue to elevate those college brands. And with all of that, then we will be able to drive the revenue that we need.
That is a great positive thought to end us our conversation today. And so really, I appreciate you. You've been listening to ICLA podcast, Licensed to Lead Business by the Brand. Our guest today has been Tammy Purves, VP of Communications with Learfield CLC and an ICLA Hall of Famer. So on behalf of the ICLA Board of Directors and for my ICLA podcast committee member, Sonny Minton, I'm Jason Harbison, and this has been Licensed to Lead Business Behind the Brand. This episode is brought to you by Old Hat Creative, the nation's leader in sports creative. Looking to take your brand to the next level? Old Hat has been partnering with college and professional athletic organizations for 2 decades, helping more than 200 teams elevate their brands. From logo design and branding to facility graphics, video production, research, web development, and more, they've got you covered. Old Hat Creative, your ultimate sports branding partner. For more information, visit oldhatcreative.com or follow them at Old Hat Creative.